So, introduction to genetics. So, what is genetics? What is genetics? So, if you check the note out there, genetics is the study of how traits are passed from parents to offsprings. That's what genetics is. So, parents have a certain traits, and those traits may be in dad and mom, and they give birth, and then the child has those traits from the parents. So, if you look at the picture on the screen, you see that the offspring there, the boy there has his father's eyebrow, very, very thick, but he has his mother's eyes, very big and bulgy, taking his father's nose, more like a dot, and his mother's mouth. So that's what we refer to as genetics, the study of how traits are passed from parent to offspring. But in the definition of genetics, you see that the underlined traits. So what exactly is traits? So in the definition, traits are like features like eye color, hair texture, plant height. If you are talking about plants, plant height, seed color. But more specifically, in genetics, when we say eye color, hair texture, those are more specifically known as characters. And specific options of those characters are the traits. So traits are features like maybe brown eyes. So the color of the eye is brown, or the height of the plant is tall or short. So the specific options like brown eye, blue eye, or green eye are known as the traits. So these traits are features that the parents pass on to the offspring. And the traits you are talking about is not seen in only humans. It can also be observed in plants as well. That's why I spoke about plants having plant height. The seed of plants, their color, the seed of plants can be green or yellow or any other color at all. These are features that parent plants can pass on to their baby plants. Plants are babies. Now, the next slide spoke about traits being controlled by genes found in our DNA. So if you take our DNA, there are specific sections of our DNA that control a specific trait. These sections of our DNA that are responsible for controlling a specific trait are known as genes. So a gene controls the traits that we see. So what exactly are genes and what are alleles? Some people call it what? Allele. It's a allele. So what are genes and alleles? So genes are like instructions, like manuals. So you have a recipe book. So if you have a look at the book, if you read the book very well, maybe the book gives you instruction of how to make pancakes. So that instruction is more like the gene, and the pancake that will be made is more like the trait. So in our human body, we have genes that are like instructions that tells the body how to code for a particular trait. And then genes come in flavors. They come in flavors. They come in options. They come in flavors. And these flavors are known as the alleles. So the different versions of a gene are called alleles. Let's look at this diagram to explain and see. So during sexual reproduction, every baby receives genetic information from his dad and his mom. During sexual reproduction, you see the father gives sperm, the mom brings her eggs, the two fuse together. That's how the baby is formed. So in the sperm, the genetic information needed to form the baby from the dad is found in the sperm. The same thing for the eggs. Now, the dad gives his chromosome. So for the chromosome at the top, that's the chromosome from the dad, and the chromosome at the down is the chromosome from the mom. Now, on these chromosomes, there are specific locations. These specific locations on the chromosome are known as genes that control a specific character. So that is what is indicated on the screen. Now, the dad's chromosome and the mom's chromosome, the side that has the rectangle, the one vertical rectangle on the side, those two locations are responsible for the same trait. The next slide will give more explanation on that. Now, for the dad's own and the mom's own, each of them is known as an allele. Each of them is known as an allele. So, mom's allele plus dad alleles is what we are referring to as the gene that controls a particular trait. So, for example, let's assume that we are talking about a gene that controls eye color. So, the eye color of a child. So now, during sexual reproduction, the father and the mother, when making the baby in the womb of the mother, there is the need for the baby to have a certain eye color. It can be blue, green, or brown, any eye color of choice. But for that eye color, dad is going to give his part, his contribution to the eye color, and mom is also going to give her contribution to the eye color. So that section is known as the locus for eye color gene. So on dad's chromosome and on mom's chromosome, on that same homologous chromosome, there is a location. The location is what you are referred to as the locus. So that locus for eye color gene. So that same instruction is found on dad's gene, and the same thing is found on mom's gene. So let's assume for dad's own, the allele for dad's own is for blue eyes. Maybe the father has blue eyes. So when he was giving his chromosome to his child, there is no telling that he's going to give blue eye allele to the child. And let's assume the mom has brown eyes. So on that same locus, for the eye color gene, the mom's allele is for brown eyes. So the child is going to have these two alleles, the alleles responsible for blue eyes and the alleles responsible for brown eyes, all of this in his system whilst in the womb. So that's how it happens. But you would agree with me that no one is born with blue and green eyes at the same time. I think it should be blue and brown eyes at the same time. So no one is born without blue and brown eye color at the same time. Imagine the left eye being brown and the right eye being blue. That is not how it should be normally. So the two eyes can be blue or the two can be green. But you'd agree with me that the father gave blue, the mother gave brown. But why is it that only one of them will show? That brings us the concept of dominant and recessive alleles. So at every point in time, one of the alleles is dominant. One of them is the boss. One of them takes control. One of them gives its command. And we have another one that follows instruction. It is recessive. It is overcome by the dominant one. So what do we mean by dominant alleles? An allele is referred to as a dominant allele if it will show up even if only one copy is present. You don't need two copies of it. So it is the dominant allele that is expressed in the physical expression of the child. So for dominant alleles, you need only one copy for it to be expressed. But for recessive alleles, you need two copies before it will be expressed in the child physically for us to observe. That is for recessive and dominant. So let's draw more attention to it. Now we're talking about dominant showing in the physical expression of the child. That brings us to genotype and phenotype. What's the difference between genotype and phenotype? Genotype is basically the genetic makeup of a child. Your genetic makeup. What is found in your system, that is your genotype. So genotype is the genetic code you carry. And this genetic code, it is actually the two versions of the gene. That is the alleles that you got from your parents. So that child we're talking about at the moment, the genotype is the brown for eye color, is for blue and brown from the blue and brown from the parents. That is his genotype. Now think of this genotype as letter codes inside your body. It doesn't mean we have alphabets in our body, but for simplification and understanding of concept, you should think of them as letter codes in our body. So we are going to pick an example. So let's assume we want to discuss eye color. let's say for eye color, the father gave an allele for blue eyes and the mother gave an allele for brown eyes. So for blue eyes, we indicate it with small b, and for brown eyes, we indicate it with capital B. Why that choice? You see, the genetics of eye color, brown is the most dominant. Brown is dominant over blue. We also have a different eye color that is green. Green is dominant over blue as well. Blue is recessive. So at every point in time where a child is given these two alleles, brown and blue, brown will always be dominant over blue. So the dominant one is indicated with the capital letter of the alphabet that we choose, and the recessive is indicated by the small letter. And take note of this. Although we have brown and blue and I use alphabet B, it doesn't mean that is the standard. You can use any alphabet at all. I would say maybe let's assume G is for brown eye color dominant, capital G for brown eye color, and small g for blue eye color. So the alphabet doesn't matter. Just make sure that the capital letter goes for the dominant and the small letter goes for the recessive. So for the eye color, let's say capital B is for brown eye allele, which is dominant, and small b for blue eye allele, which is recessive. What that means is that the genotype of the child that will be born, there are options of this genotype. We can have capital B, that is 2 brown alleles. So what that means is that daddy gave brown eye alleles and mom also gave brown eye alleles. So there's capital B from dad, capital B from mom, brown eye alleles from dad, and brown eye alleles from mom. The other option is that for genotype, it can be that daddy gave brown eye allele and mommy gave blue eye alleles. So for the genotype, it will be capital B, small b, so 1 brown and 1 blue allele. And the last option is they both gave blue alleles. B from that's blue, recessive. Another B from mom, blue, recessive. Before we proceed to the next slide, I would like to mention something. When you say capital B, that is 2 dominant alleles. As the genotype is referred to as homozygous dominant alleles. So the condition is homozygous dominant. If you have 1 dominant and 1 recessive, like in capital B, small b, it's known as heterozygote dominant. But if you have small b, 2 of them, it's known as homozygous recessive for the allele or for the trait. So these are the possible genotypes that the child is going to have. So what is phenotype? So phenotype is the physical appearance, what we actually see on the outside. So the phenotype for us is the eye color that we see. And take note, our phenotype is controlled by our genotype. Our phenotype is controlled by our genotype. You know, people say don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. When it comes to genetics doesn't respect that. Yes, sometimes, most of the cases, you look at the physical appearance of a child. In certain instances, you can look at how the person looks at and have an idea about what the inside is, the genotype is, in certain instances. So our phenotype is controlled by our genotype. What does that mean? Let's look at this table and see. So if the child is homozygous dominant for the allele for eye color being brown, so brown eye allele from mom and dad, that means for the phenotype, the physical expression of the child will be born with brown eyes. But let's assume one of the parents gave brown alleles, which is dominant, and the other gave a blue allele, which is recessive. His genotype will be capital B, small b. That child will still be born with brown eyes because of the presence of one dominant allele. Remember when we were talking about dominant alleles, we said it is a type of allele that needs only one copy to be expressed physically in the child. What about if the genotype is small b, that's two blue alleles from both parents? The child will be born with blue eyes. The child will be born with blue eyes. So what does that mean? That means brown is dominant. So even one B gives you brown eyes. You just need one of them to be present for the child too. One capital B gives you brown eyes. You don't need two of them. So this means that if two people both have brown eyes, it doesn't necessarily mean they have the same genotype. So in this instance, we can firmly say that you don't judge a book by its cover. Yes, the cover can be brown eyes, but the inside is different. So two people can have the same eye color, maybe brown eyes, that is their same phenotype. So you see two individuals all having brown eyes, their genotype might be different. Maybe one of them is homozygous dominant, that is capital B, and the other might be heterozygous dominant, capital B, small b. They have different genotype. So this is just a brief recap of or introduction to genetics and what you know about traits. In our next lesson, we'll be talking about genetic crossing. But we'll focus more on dihybrid crossing. So come back for the next lesson, what dihybrid crossing is, and how maybe be giving some specific information about parents having some kind of genotype, what the genotype of their offspring should be, and the genetic and phenotypic ratios in the first philia and second philia generation should be. So see you in our next lesson.